Have we paid too high a price for the release of our hostages, or is no price too high? This is a dilemma I've struggled with for nearly 2 years, as I'm sure most of you have as well. Avodah Zarah, Daf Yudches Amud Aleph, the anatomy of a Sheila, Beruriah Bertya Rabbi Xanina ben Tradyon. It's amazing that in this piece of Gemara, we're able to find an approach to this vexing existential question, not just in the Gemara itself, but particularly in the way it's unpacked by a new discovery, a new friend, a Rabbi Shik from about 200 years ago in Ukraine, was a Rav in that area around Brisk and Kamenetz for all of his life, and wrote on the Agadah Torah, the sections of the Torah, a sefer called Ein Eliyahu. And he deals with this question. The question really starts with a Mishnah back in Gittin, Daf Mem Hey Amud Aleph, Ein podin et hashvuyin yeter al demehen, mipnei tikun haolam. You don't pay to release a hostage more than the value of that person. However we estimate that value, we won't go into that now. But what we see from the Mishnah is there is a ceiling, there is a limit. Despite the enormous mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuim, despite the tragedy of kidnapping and what that means, there is still a limit as to how much we're permitted to pay. And the Gemara goes into a discussion, is that a universal limit that no matter how wealthy the relatives of this person are, they can't pay it? Is this just about not impoverishing the community? Or is this about discouraging kidnapping? And if the Jewish community will always pay whatever price, then the kidnappers will continue their kidnapping exploits. We know the story with the Maharam Rutenberg, who supposedly, we're told, forbade the community to redeem him for that very reason. He didn't want the kidnappers to find that if they kidnap somebody important in the community would pay whatever the asking price was. And so the Mishnah sets the limit, whatever that limit is. But the fact is there is a limit, which is what leads me to this question of, is there a limit to how much we need to be paying to release our precious hostages being held in Gaza? Is it right for us? Is it permissible for us? Is it obligatory to release the thousands of terrorist prisoners that we've had to release in order to recover hostages? To risk the lives of hundreds of young boys who've died in an effort to conquer Hamas without endangering the hostages? We know from the recent battles against Iran and Hezbollah that we have the capacity to bring about great destruction without as enormous a loss of life as we've experienced in Gaza. And there might be many, many reasons as to why we have fought the war in Gaza so delicately, despite what the world says. But clearly one of the reasons is to protect the lives of the hostages. And as a result of that, we've lost many other innocent lives of young boys who've gone to battle and have had to risk their lives so as not to endanger the hostages. And of course, this question is much more complex than just the issue of the hostages. And I'm no military expert, so certainly not suggesting any oversimplification of it. I'm just trying to hone in onto one question, and that is it right to risk the lives of so many people to save the hostages? Is it right to pay the price of releasing so many terrorists to save the hostages? Or are we not permitted to do so? On the other hand, is there just no price that is too high? We're saving Jewish lives, we're doing a mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuim, and it doesn't matter what the cost is. It would seem from the Mishnah in Gittin that there is some kind of a limit above which we don't go. So let's have a look at our Gemara. Our Gemara talks about Beruriah, who was the wife of Rabbi Meir and the daughter of Rabbi Xanina ben Tradyon. And the last page of Gemara has been talking about Rabbi Xanina ben Tradyon and his wife and his daughter, Beruriah's sister. Beruriah says to her husband, Rabbi Meir, after her daughter is captured and forced to work in a brothel. We see from the development of the Gemara that she never did anything wrong in that brothel, but that's where she had to live for a period of time. And Rabbi Meir's wife says, Zila bi milta diyatva achtai bekuba shel zonot. It's the most painful, embarrassing, sad thing for me that my sister is sitting in a brothel. Shakal tarkava de dinari va'azal. Rabbi Meir took a fortune of money, a load of golden coins, and he goes to try and bribe the guards of this brothel to release his wife's sister, the daughter of Rabbi Xanina ben Tradyon. And so he goes, and this is the famous Gemara, he says to the guard. I need him released. The guard says, Mistafina mi malchuta. I'm scared of the authorities. What will they do if I let her go? Amale shkol tarkava de dinari. Palga plach falga levilach. Here I'm giving you this huge sack of golden coins. Use half of it to bribe the authorities if you need to, and half of it is a commission for you for letting my sister-in-law go. And then he says, V'chi shalmi ma'i avid. And when I've finished bribing, if I'm still under pressure from the authorities, what do I do then? And Rabbi Meir says an important comment which we use. Many of you will be familiar with the tefillah we say when we've lost something and cannot find it. Rabbi Meir says to the guard, at that time when you find yourself in this difficult dilemma where you're under pressure from the guards and you have nothing to provide anymore, you have nothing with which to bribe them, Ema Eloha de Meir Anani, say, may the God of Rabbi Meir, may the God of Meir answer me and protect me, umitatzlat, and you will be saved as a result of that. And that leads us into that understanding that when everything else has failed, when one has nowhere to turn, turning to the God of Rabbi Meir. And there are a lot of discussions as to what that means. The God of Rabbi Meir is my God, your God as well. What's special about the God of Rabbi Meir, the Elocha de Meir, and the understanding of what that means. But be that as it may, that's a special tefillah that we use at certain moments, and it has a fortune of power. And Rabbi Meir shares with the God of the brothel the power of this particular bracha. The Ein Eliyahu, Rabbi Eliyahu Shik, asks, why does Rabbi Meir's wife have to say, I'm embarrassed? Surely there's a mitzvah of pidyon shvuim. Shouldn't she have come to her husband and said, my sister is captured. She's being forced to live in a brothel. This is incredibly dangerous for her, and there's an issue of pidyon shvuim. Can we please work on this and get her saved? Why does she come at it from the perspective of, I'm embarrassed? This is the question that the Ein Eliyahu asks. Lichora lama amra dafka machmat zila. Even if she's not feeling embarrassed, even if she's not feeling the pain, there's a requirement of the community, and especially the relatives, to do pidyon shvuim, to pay what it needs to be paid in order to recover the captured person. V'hanira, the mevuar begitin daf memhei. And the Ein Eliyahu brings this Mishnah in Gittin, where it says, Ein podin hashvuyin yoter michdei dmehen, where you don't redeem a captured person for more than the value of that person, whatever that value is. Again, the idea being just that there is somehow a limit, and that's brought, in fact, in the Shulchan Aruch, and he brings a shach in Shulchan Aruch that the shach holds that even a relative must abide by that limit. Even if they have the money, they need to abide by that limit. And now Rabbi Eliyahu Shik enunciates an important chidush. Ki ha'adam ba'atzmo yachol lifdot et atzmo b'chol ma sheyirtzeh l'chul alma. Although the Gemara goes into a discussion there about this limit, one thing is clear, says Rabbi Eliyahu Shik, and that is that an individual is allowed to pay and is obligated to pay whatever he can to release himself or herself. So we're talking about, does the community have to pay an unlimited amount to release a hostage? Does a relative have to pay an unlimited amount to release a hostage? But one thing is for sure, an individual, him or herself, has to pay whatever they're able to pay to get themselves released. And therefore, says Rabbi Eliyahu Shik, if the family of the person feels the pain so deeply that their relative is captured in such a situation, then mutar liftot afilu yoter michdei demehem da'havi kamo shepodeh et atzmo. Then he or she can redeem the hostage for whatever amount they're able to raise, whatever they're able to do, because it's as if they are redeeming themselves. And that's an unbelievably beautiful idea, a very sad but beautiful idea. And that is, if the person who's in captivity is a stranger, I don't really know that person, and I have no real deep empathy for that person, then there are limits to how much I can pay in order to redeem them. If, on the other hand, it's me, myself, I am the hostage, I can pay whatever I want. There is no limit. What about if I am not the hostage, but I am suffering terribly because of the captivity of that hostage? Now to redeem the hostage is not only a mitzvah of pidyon shvurim. I'm not only redeeming that person, I'm also redeeming myself, because my empathetic feeling is such that I feel captured. I feel in that situation. And therefore the din is, says Rabbi Yoshik brilliantly, the din then is, the law is, I can act as if I am the hostage because my soul is captured, that my soul is in captivity. And by releasing the hostage, I'm releasing my own soul. And therefore there is no limit to how much I can spend on getting this particular person out. And that's why she had to come at Rabbi Meir and say, I'm suffering, Rabbi Meir. And you and I are married, we're as one. We are suffering. And therefore there is no limit. And that's why Rabbi Meir took far more than the, so to say, value of the captured person, and took this bag full of golden coins, which I'm sure he could barely afford, because there was no limit as to how much he had to do in order to redeem his sister-in-law, not because he's redeeming the sister-in-law, but because he's also redeeming he and himself and his wife's soul that is so captured and in such pain and suffering as a result of this captivity. And so when I apply this to our situation, I realize if the Sheila were asked, let's say I were in the unenviable position of being asked the Sheila, should we risk the lives of young people to save the lives of the hostage, of the hostages? Should we release thousands of murderers and terrorists in order to get some of the hostages back? That would be a very severe Sheila for a posek to decide, and he would have to make a decision on that. But sometimes things aren't a Sheila. A Sheila is only a Sheila. A question is a Sheila means I have a life dilemma which I am asking to be resolved using halachic reasoning, using the critical thinking of a halachic mind and the value system of halakha and Torah in order to resolve this dilemma. Then a posek gets involved and works out how to navigate, to find a way to resolve the dilemma. But if it isn't even a Sheila, then that process doesn't begin. The halachic reasoning doesn't begin. So imagine, God forbid, that the parents of these hostages, they don't have a Sheila. They don't come to a posek and say, should I invest whatever efforts I can to redeem my son or my daughter? It's not a Sheila for them. They'll do whatever they can, just as if a person is in captivity themselves. They'll do whatever they can. And so they don't bring a Sheila. And what has been tragically beautiful about the last 2 years is that every person in Israel and most Jewish people around the world feel the enormous pain and weight of the hostages in Gaza. It's not just that there are some hostages there and we have a cerebral question of how much is the price to pay? What should we be sacrificing in order to recover them? We're not even at a Sheila level. There is no Sheila. We feel such pain. We feel ourselves as captivated. We feel as if, God forbid, this were our own children, our own relatives who have been captured. This is one nation. We feel the oneness of the nation more than anything. This has brought us together. The events of October the 7th, 2023, and the hostages has brought the nation together. A divided and split nation before that time has come together because we all, every one of us, feel the pain of those hostages. And we're not asking Sheilas. There is no Sheila. Nobody's asked the question of a posek. Should we do this or should we do that? How much effort should we put in? It's not at a Sheila level. It's such a deep personal level that based on this chidush of Rabbi Yoshik, just as we could pay anything in the world to get ourselves free, so we can pay anything in the world to get our souls free of the pain of captivity, the pain of being imprisoned by these barbarians. We can pay whatever there is, and we will pay because it's our pain. It's not just a communal responsibility to some stranger. This is one of ours. This is one of our families, not one, but many of our families, and we feel that pain so very deeply. And let's dedicate our learning today to the prayer and the hope that no matter what the cost, we get every last hostage back very, very soon, and that never again does such a tragedy occur to the Jewish people.